Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I would welcome you to our webinar. Before we begin, I would just like to let you know that there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them using the Q&A button at the top of the screen, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Sam Smith, who will be delivering today's webinar, Service Excellence Not a Given.
Thank you very much, Kia, and good morning, everybody. My name is Sam Smith. I'm the Head of Managed IT Services here at Pink Elephant. Today, I'm going to talk about service excellence, but for the purpose of this, I'm going to turn my camera off so there's no speedy interruptions and you can hear my voice. Okay, right. As I said, I'm Sam Smith. I'm the Head of Managed IT Services here at Pink Elephant EMEA. I have worked within IT services and the IT service ecosystem for nearly 30 years. And my particular focus has been in IT service management. So service excellence is something that is particularly close to my heart. For those of you that are not familiar with Pink Elephant, Pink is a global MSP, and we support businesses with managed IT services through our Service Excellence Centre, along with IT service management consultancy, training, and ITSM platforms. With this in mind, and the way that we fit together, it brings me to my webinar today. In this webinar, I'd like to talk about service excellence, and more specifically, how a partner approach between a supplier and a customer can lift service performance across all IT services in your organization and not just in one area. Service excellence isn't something a supplier can deliver to a customer, and it isn't something a customer can demand from a supplier. Service excellence is the magic that happens when parties choose to operate as one team, one system with shared goals, truth and accountability, and structured improvement. So, why don't we start with this scenario? Some of us may have witnessed this actively and lived through this before. Have you ever had, or do you have a supplier who meets every SLA, but you still feel let down? Tickets always closed on time, all of your reporting is always green, service performance penalties are never activated, but the service users voice a frustration. They're reluctant to use the service, and the general feeling was, why does this feel so hard? For me, one of the strongest memories I have personally was about 7 years ago, working in higher education. Service and vendor reporting was all as expected, no issues on paper, but often I would witness academics coming into our open plan office rather agitated, shall I say, because the data store didn't have enough storage for students to save the end of term code and operating files. An expensive budgetary hit each department review that need to be challenged. They couldn't release further funding to increase the storage, so a lack of inability to restrict student submissions meant IT services as a whole were tolerated rather than valued. After all, memory sticks are cheap, right? Now, think of an opposite example. A situation where something went quite wrong, even terribly wrong. Something that felt like a continuous, oh, what next moment. But the way it was actively handled left you thinking, that was actually a good service because the communication was clear, decisions were fast, and it felt like everyone was on the same team, despite the urgency and impact of the situation. Again, for me, there are several examples that I've lived through that really resonate on this point. For instance, you'll remember the 2024 incident with CrowdStrike. Simply put, over 8 million Windows devices globally suffered the dreaded blue screen of death because an update to the Falcon endpoint security software was pushed without being properly checked. For those affected, which was one of my clients at the time, there was an utter and instant disaster to their operational business. They couldn't function, and I'm sure you know that scenario. But whilst the business was running through the standard major incident procedures, 2 support team members stepped out of the loop for 20 minutes and came back with a solution which got the business back up and running by close of play. Now, just to qualify that, these 2 team members were service desk agents, and they were not responsible for any resolution within the MI process. But because they understood the client, their technology, and had the ability to make a meaningful contribution, when the dust settled, this was a standout moment for the business and one of service excellence. And that's the key difference, really, between a contractual service and a felt service. Something we'll try and unpack a little today. So let's take this step by step. During the next moments, we will discuss what service excellence really means, why partnership is the multiplier, the operating model that makes a partnership work, everyday actions and routines that make the system of service excellence part of how we work. Then, if we make it that far, a 90-day plan that you can think about implementing in your own businesses. So, first, what do we mean by service excellence? Service excellence is the point where IT becomes solidly reliable, where it enables work instead of interfering or halting with it. So, what is and isn't service excellence? Let's discuss the positives. Service excellence is where the business can depend on IT, where users feel supported rather than processed. Leaders trust reporting because the data actually manages reality. Change happens safely and predictably. And when incidents happen, because they will always happen, the organization responds with speed, clarity, and learning. Quite simply, service excellence is outcomes plus experience delivered constantly. And just as importantly, service excellence is not a whole bank of green dashboards. While users are frustrated or a user feels unhappy with the service, ticket closure is used predominantly as a substitute to fixing a root cause or governance that measures compliance more than progress. The last point I'm sure you can all resonate with. A service can be compliant and still be very disappointing, or just less than expected. The reason this matters is because excellence is not magically produced by one party. It's produced by a system. That system spans customers, suppliers, and equally multiple third parties. This is actually a good point because confidence and predictability are often the real outputs of service excellence. So, if service excellence is a system outcome, the next question should be, what kind of relationship creates the best system? Let's move on. Most supplier-customer relationships begin with good intent, but under pressure or complacency, many drift into a transactional model. In the transactional model, the customer protects themselves with scope and clause contracts. The supplier protects themselves with service boundaries or limitations and targeted reporting. And over time, a relationship becomes a negotiation and often a confrontational space. Tickets become arguments, problems become political, change becomes a blame game. Innovation becomes one of those sucking teeth moments. The transactional model optimizes for protection, not performance, whereas a partner model does the opposite. It optimizes for shared success. With the partner model, both sides agree. We will share the risks early and not after an escalation. We will be transparent about our constraints. We will solve our issues together and not hand them off. That's your problem. And we will focus on outcomes and not the activity. How do we do this together? And when you do that, something important happens. Every improvement becomes easier. Incident resolution speeds up because information flows easily. Change success improves because planning is aligned. User satisfaction increases because communication is consistent for everyone. Costs can come down because the waste is removed. And team burnout, which is a very real issue in our industry, becomes lessened as team members are not living in a constant friction working environment. Partnership isn't a nice to have, it's the engine that makes service excellence scalable. And this moves us on to a practical question. What does partnership look like when it's not just a word? There are 5 building blocks that turn supplier and customer into a partnership that delivers excellence across IT. Shared outcomes and value, governance that works, an integrated operating model, measurement and insight that drives improvement, continuous improvement, and so let's break that down. Shared outcome and value. This is where many relations can, without intention, fail quietly. It's easy to align on deliverables, headcount, hours, SLAs, tools and ticket categories, but harder to align on value, what success looks like for the business and its users. The first step in a partnership is to agree outcomes in plain language. Reliability and resilience, user productivity and confidence, safe, predictable change, security and compliance posture, and cost transparency. A simple test. If I asked a supplier leadership and customer leadership separately, what are the top 3 outcomes? Would they match? If not, you don't have a partnership yet. You have a contract. So this is the key. Shared outcomes create shared prioritization, and shared prioritization reduces noise and aligns goals. Governance that works. Let's move on to governance now. Governance is not meetings. Governance is decision making. A partner approach builds governance that is light enough to respond quickly and strong enough to manage risk and clear enough to remove uncertainty. It includes a natural, repeatable, operational rhythm, service reviews that resolve issues, problem and trend reviews, not just volume reporting, change governance with shared risk decisions, and quarterly business reviews focused on the outcomes, the joint roadmap, and any investments that need to be made. The most important thing here, governance must be the space where issues are solved, not where issues get presented. If your weekly, monthly, or quarterly service review is a theatre performance, you're not governing, you're defending. Partnership governance is collaborative, but it also delivers clear decisions, clear actions, and clear ownership. Okay, hopefully everybody's still with me. Let's move on to the integrated operating model. So the way that we do this, the way that we look at an integrated operating model, is to look at it as the part that turns partnership from good intentions into great execution. An integrated operating model means shared process language for incident, request, change, problem, knowledge. A clear RACI across customer teams and supplier teams, known escalation paths, and shared visibility through the use of tools and data, and a consistent communication model, especially for major or high impact incidents. Practically, the gap between two organizations literally becomes the gap where service fails. Questions like, who owns the communications? Who declares a major incident? Who owns problem management and root cause? Who coordinates third parties? These should not be negotiated during an incident. They should be clearly understood and designed in advance. And this is why this isn't just around service desk. An integrated operating model connects the whole service chain. The service desk, operations, security, change, applications and vendors, the whole lot. Okay, let's move on to measurement and insight. Measurement and insight is where we have a partnership that isn't that you need or have fewer metrics. It means better metrics, and metrics that mean something tangible. Of course, you still need SLAs. They are a core foundation, but service excellence moves us beyond SLAs and into experience measures, XLAs. Flow measures, lead time, change success rate. Reliability measures, repeat incidents and MTTR. And improvement measures, known, knowledge, reuse, deflection, automation adoption. The rule here is simple. Measure what the customer feels and measure what improves the system. Then share that data openly. What that is, good, bad, and ugly, because improvement needs that honesty and truth. In a space where we only measure compliance, we will optimize compliance, and compliance is not the same as service excellence. Let's move on to continuous improvement. The next and final building block is continuous improvement and innovation by design. If improvement only happens after a crisis, we more importantly, are not improving. We're just recovering. A partnership creates a structured improvement pipeline with quick wins, stabilization, optimization, and transformation. It gives the ability to work a joint backlog prioritized against outcomes. It enables protected capacity, its regular review, and its measured benefits. This is where service excellence becomes sustainable. Because realistically, excellence isn't a project. It is a capability. But we can't talk about continuous improvement and innovation without acknowledging the role which AI plays across IT services in the business. AI is often positioned as the answer to efficiency. Faster, better resolution, lower cost, fewer tickets, etc. And yes, as a tool, it can absolutely deliver that. But here is the important point. AI doesn't fix a flawed service system. It accelerates it. If your processes are fragmented, AI will make them fragmented faster. If your data is inconsistent, AI will scale that inconsistently. And if your partners aren't aligned, as mentioned earlier, AI will amplify the gaps that are between us. In a functioning partner model where you have shared outcomes, clean data, and an integrated operating model, AI can become incredibly powerful. It can surface insight earlier, flag issues before users feel them, and of course, automate the repetitive so that teams can focus on real value. So really, the question isn't, should we adopt AI? That's already happening. The question is, do we have a service system mature enough to benefit from it? The value of AI in service is directly proportional to the quality of your partnership. Or, in other words, yes, AI can do a lot, but it delivers the most when you've got the right people working together behind it. Okay, right. We've spoken about the 5 building blocks, so let's move on to how we can make that work. The thing here is that we need to make this practical, as clearly partnerships do not live in slide decks. They live in real human day-to-day behaviours and routines. In a very real sense, the behaviours to adopt are quite simple. No surprises. Escalate early, share risks early, and communicate early. Assume a positive intent, which is not always easy, but fix before blame and learn before judgment. Have one narrative. The customer should not get 2 different stories depending on who they ask. Own the outcome. Even when the root cause is not yours, the restoration of service is everyone's responsibility. And learn, don't just close. Closing tickets is not the same as improving service. You embed these behaviours through rituals like operational stand-ups, service reviews focus on trends and outcomes, monthly problem reviews, and a prevention backlog. Change governance with shared risk decisions and quarterly business reviews that focus on outcomes and the roadmap. One ritual I would definitely recommend strongly is a monthly moments of truth. Pick the top user journeys that define that perception, whatever they may be. Map that end-to-end journey and identify those friction points and fix them together. That's how you can turn improvement into something customers and users actually feel. So let's take a look at how you can build your own service excellence journey. With this, as you can see here, if you're thinking about how do we start, potentially here is a 90-day plan that works in actual real environments. So in the first 30 days, you would need to align and stabilize, agree those shared outcomes and top pain points, establish joint governance rhythm, implement a single major incident model and comms ownership, and deliver 3 to 5 quick wins on recurring issues. Then, moving forward, up to day 60, integrate and measure. Implement shared dashboards, SAs plus experience measures. Clarify RACI and escalation paths. Launch knowledge improvement and ownership. Build a problem backlog with prospective and preventative actions. And when you get through that, improve and embed. Start a continuous improvement pipeline that with protected capability, automate 3 to 5 high volume requests, run a moments of truth journey to fix, hold a joint QBR focused on outcomes, investment, and the next quarter's priorities. The point is not to transform everything at once. The point is to build credibility through stabilization, then embed partnership through integration, then compound those improvements. So we're now coming towards the end of the talk with us today, but service excellence is not a heroic act. It's not a tool or an app or one place initiative. It's a compound interest of trust, transparency, shared accountability, and disciplined improvement. Those are partnership qualities. Start with shared outcomes, not a scope. Build an integrated operating model and remove ambiguity and handoff gaps. Measure experience and improvement, not just compliance. These things will really supercharge your journey to move forward with service excellence. But here's a challenge. In the next 30 days, pick one of those uncomfortable journeys. Maybe one service that defines perception and form a joint customer supplier team to fix it end to end. Not to hold each other to account, but to build something better together. Because when you build that partnership, you don't just improve IT service, you improve confidence, you improve momentum, and you improve the organization's ability to change. And quite frankly, what you need to remember is service excellence isn't what we do today, it's who we choose to be every day. Okay, and with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today and hand back to Kia.
Thank you, Sam. So we'll now move on to the Q&A session. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A section, the buttons at the top of the screen. While we wait for any questions to come through, I have a question. So, how do you build a genuine partnership when the supplier relationship is already damaged?
That's actually a really good one. When you're looking at a relationship that's already broken, it can often feel impossible to fix. However, what you need to do is you need to start with honesty and transparency. You need to look at one or two things that are the real issue and try and work on those together. But it's fundamentally about trust. So when you have a relationship that's broken down for some reason, trust really does come into it. So if you can rebuild that trust and be transparent about why things have happened and don't try and hide behind excuses or point fingers, that really does go a long way to rebuild those relationships. And when you start building those relationships and delivering measurable outcomes, they can only get stronger.
Thank you. We have another question from Yana. How do you create partnership when there are multiple suppliers involved?
Okay, so this is about shared governance, realistically, and a clear RACI model. So who's accountable for what, and equally to have common service outcomes. often a customer will act as a service integrator, but sometimes with the sign model, that's not necessarily the case. But really, it's about having that single integrator point that can make sure that everybody is delivering what they need to deliver, and actually they know where they can add benefit.
Okay, so we have a question from Stuart. What XLAs do you measure and how do you do this?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question. So an XLA is basically that customer experience journey. So every business is unique. Everyone has different pain points. The user community will always give feedback in relation to the what does not work. So XLAs are based on that specific customer journey. You know that when you are measuring for the fact of seeing whether you've got an SLA that is achieved, you've got your lovely green light, it doesn't actually do the emotional side of how a customer feels. But what you do is you complete surveys, you get responses back, you get the pulse of the customer, and you pick some of those things that are coming through as those pain points and you work on those and you measure those. So every time you are every quarter, say, you're doing another survey to see if that satisfaction is improving against those key areas. You don't necessarily have to pinpoint something unless it is a real pain. A survey and feedback mechanism, like smiley faces, you may have seen within ITSM tools. How happy are you with the service? That's where we do start from an XLA point of view. XLAs, it's really important to understand, are longer term measures because improvements are over a period of time, but it's how we can track them that's important, because that user journey is the thing that makes the experience of IT something that is worthwhile.
Thank you. So our next question is from Manib. What is the difference between SLA and SLO, and is one more important than the other?
So in relation to SLA, so SLA is your service level agreement. So realistically, if you are not in a partnership model, your SLA is going to be incredibly important. But I think the other one was OLA. Yeah, it's OLA. So that's the operating level agreement. So when you work in an environment with multiple vendors and multiple partners, multiple teams that all build up into a single service delivery, OLAs are important in relation to those accountability. Say security team has its own accountability back to the business operating, but overall the SLA is the one that sits over the top in relation to the end-to-end delivery. So for example, if you have a ticket that is sat there for a password reset, let's choose something really simple, and that should take 15 minutes. Standard SLAs, that's done within 15 minutes, start to end. If actually that service agent has then got to speak to a security team and the security team have no OLA to support them, that'll always breach. So having the two aligned is very important, but the SLA from a customer perspective is always the one that is over the top of the OLA.
Thank you. So we have another question from Daniel. With sometimes conflicting expectations on third-party responsibilities, and often it's not our remit, while contractually they obligated. How do you address this behaviour?
So I think I understood what that was. So when you've got a multi-vendor environment and those vendors are not really taking accountability for what they're responsible for. Okay, is that correct? I'm seeing nodding here. Okay, so in that environment, it really is important to have that coordination piece. It's often the customer that will hang things together, but with that, it's a clear focus on the governance. So you've got your AC models on service. So where are your service boundaries and who is responsible for delivering those parts of the service? And fundamentally, that's when you get into a contractual discussion if your provider is not delivering against that service. but that's not a partnership model. When new partners are brought on, it's always good to start off with a positive intention, but fundamentally, if a vendor is not delivering what they're saying they're delivering, then obviously that's an economic question for the business. But the business will typically hold the keys to the kingdom as far as making sure that any suppliers are doing what they're supposed to. But there isn't one in that ecosystem. There isn't one vendor that will tranche everybody else, unless you're in a SIAM model, where you have that as a method to be able to hold other suppliers accountable, and then if they're not delivering what they're supposed to, then the business can act accordingly. Hopefully that's answered your question.
I have another question. So, can partnerships work without a long-term contract?
Yes, of course. Partnerships don't have to have a long-term contract. Partnerships work because effectively service is the thing that is being delivered. So if you've got a short-term contract, say it was a year instead of 4 years, so it was a year, within that year, the partnership idea is to say, what are we going to achieve within that year? So having clear deliverables from the outset on what that looks like means that within that year, or 6 months, whatever it is, you're not just measuring by numbers, you're measuring from the service excellence and experience point. So it's always good to start with the best intentions in relation to strategy, where you want to be, how people fit in with the RACI models and things like that.
It looks like we don't have any further questions, so we'll bring the Q&A session to a close.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, there's just one more. So from Monique, how to decide SLAs? Is it good to have a really aggressive SLA, or can it be counterintuitive?
An aggressive SLA, well, it depends on the relationship that you have. So an aggressive SLA really is something that looks like it's a penalty. So if a supplier agrees to an SLA, it means however rigid, it means that they should have the capability to deliver against that SLA, because otherwise you're always going to be in a relationship that's challenged for delivery of service, right? So you can have an aggressive SLA as long as it's meaningful. If it's there just because you think it's better value for money, then that's not meaningful. It has to be there for a justified reason, and then provided that is, then it's up to the person delivering that service to make sure they have the capability to do it.
That's all the questions. Give it a minute, just in case anyone has any questions.
Okay, obviously I am very conscious that it's not always easy to do a Q&A session, but I'd like to thank everyone for their time today to hear me talk about my view on service excellence and how you can build better relationships and long-standing partnerships with clients and departments internally as well. If you'd like to have a further conversation on that, if you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I have some bookable time via LinkedIn, so you can book time with me there. You can also find my details on our Pink Elephant website, and my time is a bookable time there as well. I like to talk, but if you've got anything that you'd like to talk about, whether it's related to Pink Elephant services or the conversation that we've had today, I'll be more than happy to hear from you. Okay, so I think that